Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Not Too Comic Book. This being a show where we talk about TV shows that are adaptations of comic books. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about Daredevil Born Again, Season 1, Episode 5. Great episode. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. It's interesting, and I wasn't expecting this episode to be like the bottled episode it was, but I guess I should have, because I was trying not to pay too much attention to the opening credits because I don't want to get spoiled who's in the episode. But I noticed, like, when I kind of looked back, I was like, oh, they kind of got through the names pretty quick. I was like, are there not going to be a lot of people in this? And so this episode's allocated to essentially two locations, outside of the bank and inside the bank. And that's so interesting because obviously the original structure of the show, my understanding is it was a lot more episodical. And so this is kind of like, I mean, from my understanding, the way people talked about it, and I think the showrunners have kind of spoken on this, a lot of this season is mainly intact from the original structure of the show. It's only until like the first episode and then like the last two episodes are completely new, I believe. Everything else is like most of what was filmed already mixed in with some new stuff. Some stuff has been re-edited and done a little differently. But yeah, so it kind of makes sense where you considering where the last episode left off and where this one is, this just kind of being like, okay, this is, I mean, it kind of makes a little sense too. Like that last episode, we saw Matt's kind of, getting back into shape when it comes to being Daredevil. And, but yeah, this is just a very like bottled episode or filler episode of some people, but I don't mind it, but I guess I can understand. I haven't looked into it, but I could see why this episode might feel so out of place for some people, because I can see like in the pacing of the season this feeling out of place, but it's like don't want to let this episode go to waste because it does some nice MCU building as well, and just kind of it's like, right, the episode's already filmed, like why just completely throw it away when you can utilize it, because it plays into like, well, it does play into like Fist operation and stuff like that, plus like the Irish like group that of the families and stuff, like they're involved in it, so it does play a larger role in chipping away at like the main story, or at least like the Fisk side of things, but still. But yeah, Matt showed up at this bank trying to get a loan, and lo and behold, he meets Kamala's dad, Yusuf, which I love that, like, obviously her family loves her and they're her biggest champions. So they're up there, he's up there talking about his, obviously from being from Jersey, and it's like, oh, we have our own superhero, Miss Marvel. And Matt's like, who? And he's like, oh, you never heard of her? And it's like, no, I'm sorry, I haven't. It's like, oh, she's got her own little Funko Pop. I think that's so adorable that, of course, you'd get any merchandise related to your daughter. But I think it's also interesting, too, because it's like, yeah, Kamala isn't a big-time hero. Yes, in her community, like her family, her friends, and her entire community, like, knows about Miss Marvel. But, like, she hasn't, like, she hasn't reached Avengers level, obviously. Yeah, she went through everything she did with Fury, Carol, and Monica during the Marvels, but even then, like, that's only like a handful of people who even know that happened. Carol, who we don't know where she is, because we know they said Kamala is in California, so I was trying to remember. I have not seen the Marvels since I saw it in theaters, so like I remember her and Carol being back on Earth, and obviously Monica's in another universe, but I'm trying to remember. I don't know if they were in California, so I don't know if that's why she's in California or not, or there's other reasons. But cause like, didn't they like relocate her entire? Well, no, cause like they are obviously from Jersey, but then they got relocated because didn't their house get trashed because of like the events of the Marvels or whatever? I'm blanking on what happened. It's been a hot minute since I saw the movie, like I said. So I'm curious why she's in California, and like not let's. Like I said, I don't remember the end. I remember like somewhat of the ending, but I don't remember the full context of where they were. Because I was like, I don't think they weren't staying at Maria's old house, were they? I don't remember. Because I felt like it was like they were relocated for some reason. I just can't remember why. Either way, but yeah, my point when I went on my massive diatribe is like, not enough people are aware of Kamala, despite going on like, a space adventure the way she did. She's still like, very your neighborhood friendly Kamala Khan, Miss Marvel, so but yeah, I just thought that was just kind of neat and stuff. So, but then Matt doesn't get the loan that he wants to, because it turns out him and Kirsten are trying to expand their business, but they don't get the loan because it's like, well, considering their financial situation and the cases that they take and they don't take, makes a lot of sense. So when it's all said and done, Matt leaves, but just then, like, the Irish crew bust in and it becomes a bank robbery. Matt's locally close enough that he hears this and he makes his way back and, handles the situation from the inside. Am I the only one that kind of get that vibe where it's just like Matt kind of loved this to some extent because he's just acting like a little different. Like, he plays like, the whole like trying to be like, oh yeah, I'm just a normal dude a little bit, but he's also acting a little courageous. To be fair, it's like he is the man with no fear. So obviously he gets a little bit of, not a little bit, a lot of that from his dad. But what I also thought was kind of interesting, like there's a moment where I think like Matt kind of looks up towards the sky and to the ceiling, and you see him kind of listening out, I think, for like the helicopters. And there's almost like this devilish smile across his face that makes me kind of go like, is Matt loving this? Is it just kind of like feels kind of good? It's almost like I'm, I shed that Daredevil skin for so long, but now, it's fitting so good. Oh, I feel a little snug. It felt like a little bit of that Daredevil came out of him in some of these moments where he just felt like he, the thing I always think about, and I think I've talked about it in this, was like one of my favorite things from like Iron Fist season 2 was the whole thing like Matt told him to protect the city, but Danny was like, yeah, I'm fighting bad people not because of what Matt asked me to do, not because it's the right thing to do. I was just looking for an excuse to light up the Iron Fist. It kind of feels like Matt's got that feeling right here where it's just like, oh, I'm saving the day, but also I'll get to let the devil out a little bit. And it's like, oh, it feels good. It feels right. It feels, because he kind of broke it. I mean, let's not forget, he's still twiddling the broken horn in his hands. It's like he can't let it go. Because someone had brought up a good point. If you were really trying to put Daredevil to bed, if you really didn't miss the guy, why would you keep any of the suits? Why do you still have all the helmets, as we saw last episode, and you're still carrying around that horn? Because you can't let it go. It's there. It will never let you go. And we see both him and Fisk last episode falling back into quote-unquote bad habits of theirs. So I think it is, that smile just made me feel like he just kind of like, oh, it feels good. It feels good. Just like Frank told him last episode, you came to me because you needed permission. You wanted permission to kind of do what you want to do. So getting back to it, I think the leader of this group, his name was Devlin, if I'm remembering correctly from subtitles, and he's doing all this because Luca has to pay out that 1.8 mil for everything that went down at was it Red Hook at the port and stuff. So I guess this is and they're supposed to be, I guess like they probably don't have that type of money on hand, so they're trying to like grab it real quickly, pay off that debt so they can basically get Fisk off their back. That's kind of supposed to be what this is about. But obviously the job didn't go the way they thought it would. The police showed up sooner because it's like Matt he was on the phone with Kristen and told her to call the police. So, and we get a little time with Angie, which we met her in the first episode. So that's why I'm curious, like, was she always a part of the show? Because my understanding is like maybe all of the first episode was brand new. So I don't know. I mean, they probably just like splattered in like Cherry and her, and then retroactively it's like, well, since we're doing episode 1 different from what was originally supposed to be episode 1, because episode 2 and 3 were supposed to be episode 1 initially, but whatever the case may be, because they did that differently, and it's like, well, let's introduce Angie and Cherry immediately and kind of lean into and kind of set that up. But Angie acts as the negotiator, and it's just like, her calm, cool, and collective nature as she's talking to Devlin, but he knows like the cop playbook of like, right, you're trying to create a rapport with me, try to keep me calm and stuff like that. It's like, you have 30 minutes to get me what we want, or our hostages start dying. And then later on, having her tell him a joke, and she's like, does anyone know a joke? And no one knows one. And she tells one. And I love him be like, wow, 10 out of 10 with the accent. I actually really, because at first I was like, where's this joke going? And it's like, I was not expecting it to be a leprechaun fucking a penguin joke. Did not expect that to be the punchline. I love that. And it's like, yeah, you're able to getting away with not a leprechaun fucking a penguin because he was mistaking it for a leprechaun nun. Getting away with that on Disney Plus is insane, but still kind of funny. But either way, I just thought that was just kind of nice, and it bought Angie more time. Hey, to be fair, he liked it a lot because he was only originally going to give her 3 minutes, but he's like, nah, you impressed me so much. You get 7 more minutes on top of the 3 minutes I was already going to give you. You got 10 minutes. I was like, oh, that's pretty impressive. But either way, I also love that moment where Matt was, they were going to let hostages go, and one was the woman who had just gotten married, and Matt was like, no, I'll give my spot to her husband. And it's like, the guy's like, all right, who are you? He's like, all right, I'm Matt Murdock. He's like, oh, an Irishman. Where are you from? He's like, Hell's Kitchen. He's like, no, before your family came here. He's like, have no idea, I'm orphan. Wow, blind and orphan. It's like, wow, we definitely got to keep this solicitor around. So yeah, Matt kept himself in play. So I thought that was, I was so curious to see like what he was going to do, because I was like, would you try to tackle this from the outside? I was like, no, without getting caught or drawing too much attention, especially in broad daylight, especially because you don't have your suit, you're not rocking it as Daredevil during the day. I was like, you're most likely going to try and tackle this from the inside, so you got to stay here because you got to figure out what they want and what they're up to, especially because Yusuf does not know the combination to this the vault they want to get in. So also, I love that whole sequence where Matt's fighting the redhead guy, the red masked dude, and the stairwell. And I'm loving that whole situation, especially with the shotgun thing, like grabbing him and choking him out while sliding down the stairs, reaching through like the openings of the stairs to grab the shotgun before it falls. And while you're like got the dude in a headlock with your legs, choking him out, I'm like, that was smooth as hell. I was like, I love that. And Yusuf doing everything he can to buy time. He's like, oh, can you get me a snack? It's like, what do you think this is? Like, oh, you don't know the code, do you? Luckily, Matt showed up and knocked the guy out and proceeded to open the safe. It's like, hey, yo. I also love that Yusuf isn't asking questions because he's like, aren't you... Like, the fact that you have no questions, but to be fair, you know what the world is because of everything that goes on, plus you know your daughter. I mean, he does say, like, what kind of lawyer did you say we was? And Matt's just like, a really good one. That's all you get. But he doesn't ask too many questions because it's like, hey, you're saving lives. I'm not going to lift a gift horse in the mouth. But like I said, like, you know what the world is. This is a world, like, the Avengers been around, world known. Like, there's heroes popping up all over the place, your daughter included. So, like, right, we kind of accept the world as it is, and it's just kind of accept help. So I thought that was fascinating. Because that's also, I thought it was an interesting conversation with one of the guys that was hostage, being a hostage. He was like, what could they be trying to take? There's nothing, like, they don't keep money in the vault. So, like, there's nothing of value. Like, he's like, yeah, I got some heirlooms and stuff in there. He's like, I got some stuff here and there that might be more valuable than anything else back there. But, like, why would they? And they were specifically going after Joel. We'll never find out how they knew that Joel was there and why, like, how did they know that? Because they already had the key. So I'm wondering if that's directly related to Fisk, because the whole thing was like, oh, get the fat man off our backs. So I was like, not unless that's a situation of like, that's something that Vanessa was doing behind his back to kind of like, this is her way to kind of ease the tensions or whatever. I mean, the whole point was the 1.8 was supposed to ease that. So not unless she's the one, because we never found out because they had the key on them, because you need both the key of the owner, the person who owns the safety deposit, and like the person who, like the bank manager. But it's like they already had that key, so they must have stolen it off the person. But like, you must have done your research on who had what. You killed that person and took, I don't know. Will we ever get answers to that? Probably not, because this is all just allocated to this episode. So they might edit in or like kind of like add it, maybe dub in some, not dub in, ADR in some extra dialogue that might fill in some of this. Or maybe it was like, maybe some of that does get referenced in the next episode or episodes to come. Who knows? I've only watched this episode, so I don't know what to expect from the next episode. But it's just, yeah, because it leaves you questioning, like, why did they know about the diamond and stuff like that? Is it important? Not necessarily, but, it's up, I guess it's almost up to you to kind of fill in those details if you care enough to. So, I don't know. Like I said, maybe it's just like it is, because it ends up being somewhat of an inside job because they had someone in the inside of the bank helping them. like pretend to be a hostage, but like I said, that doesn't give away like who owns that safety deposit box and how they got the key to it. So also, side note, I love when Matt got on the radio and did an Irish accent because you're just like, okay, so it's Charlie Cox, a British dude, doing an American accent, doing an Irish accent. That's fucking hilarious. I also wanted to kind of comment on that just because I was just thinking about like Detective Kim, once again being praised for her Irish accent. But also Matt showing up with Yusuf, now that they got the diamonds, because Matt's overhearing like, okay, the police or the SWAT team isn't going to wait any longer. The police are going to bust through. So he times it out. He's like, hey, I could give you the diamonds. You just got to let everyone go. But you're running out of time. You have to hurry up. And then the 3, 2, 1, he's counting down. And Matt's like, here, catch. And then the police bust in. I was so curious to see what was going to happen. One person, like we see Devlin end up slipping out and like disguising himself as a cop. But I love because it's like Matt immediately like he caught the temperature of the room immediately because he's trying to count like, okay, how many hostages are here, but he's also counting like how many assailants they are, and he's recognizing everyone's breaths. So he immediately knew like he heard the whole like, oh, get this to Lucas. So he heard like, okay, there's someone else here. I don't know if he'd be able to fully identify her. He might be able to, who knows. But I was wondering how that was going to go down. But Matt slipped out of the bank, and then went after Devlin and proceeded to give him a major ass beating and broke his leg. Luckily wore the mask and everything, so Devlin didn't see what he looked like. So, you poor bastard. And Luca also walked away without getting the diamond because Matt put some hard candy in there. And so I was like, ooh, love me a good switcheroo. Second switcheroo of this season. First one being during Hector's trial, the switcheroo with Nikki. I'd also had actually wondered if some of the cops that were going to show up, whether or not they'd be like Powell or something like that. But it's like, considering this, it's like, why would they? Because like they are detectives, but like, would they really show up in this situation? At least in Angie's case, she's a hostage negotiator. But like in other cases, but I was wondering if we'd see like some of that Punisher gang like crew or whatever, but whatever the case may be. They don't specify, but I can only assume it's been a couple days, like the very ending of the episode, because I'm like, ain't no way we're going back to everything being normal after a bank robbery. I'm actually curious sometimes. Like I've never watched anything that's talked about that. The whole element of how long before like a bank reopens after it gets robbed, and then how long do people before people feel comfortable going back to a bank that had been robbed? So I don't know if that was just a couple days, week late. Doesn't matter. It's an unexplained amount of time passes, and Matt's kind of perfectly fine with like, yeah, it's okay, we're not getting the loan. But he's like, no, I mainly came here to check on you, Yusuf. And he's like, hey, like, just I'd love for you to sit down with my family. And it's like, okay, that's kind of a nice little connect that if they ever want to pull that thread, they can. I mean, it probably would be easier to get like obviously Matt linked up with Kamala a lot more directly, like just because they both started off on the TV show front, it probably would be easier on that front. So but yeah, I would love that conversation and stuff like that, because I could definitely see like Kamala marking out the moment she meets Matt and finds out what he can do. Like, oh my god, like she's like, oh my god, you're the devil of Hell's Kitchen. I've heard about you, because obviously she's like a superhero fangirl, so it's like she would super mark out about it, and I think that'd be pretty dope. But when they were bringing up the whole diamond being missing thing, I'm like, where the hell did it end up though? Like, we know there was a switcheroo, but then I was like, did Matt keep it? I was like, there's no way. Don't tell me Matt kept it. I was like, that's shady as shit if he did. What about you, Seth? And it's like, well, I guess Matt was just trying to find the perfect time. Like, had to wait for the bank to reopen and had to return it without much fuss, because it's just like, oh, hey, I found this diamond. Like, you have to make sure it gets back in the right hands. You trust Yusuf enough to return it, So yeah, I just thought that was just kind of a neat little wrap up and end to it. So, also like pretty nice, like just leaving it in the candy bowl. He's like, oh, I will take one of these, and left. And then Yusuf was like, huh. it's like, who is this Matt Murdock? Like, this guy is crazy, but, you know, once again, the world is what it is in the Marvel Universe, so I think that's all Yusef needs, you know, but it's like, hey, this guy's pretty dope. I'm also able to go home to my family. So many people are able to go home to their family thanks to him, so... Yeah, just like I said, it's a bottle episode. I really, really liked it a lot. I'm curious, and I'm wondering if that's why they decided to release episodes 5 and 6 together, because it's like, yeah, they knew, like, well, this episode being what it is, like, who knows if people will be okay waiting another week. Some people have theorized it's like, that must mean that Matt must suit up as Daredevil in episode 6. It's like, we can't make people wait another week. So either way, I just thought it was a fun episode, but you know, it being what it is, they might have felt more comfortable releasing 2 episodes just to be like, all right, we'll kind of get back in more in the throw of things rather than just leaving you only this week with this this kind of very like isolated bottle episode. So like, I once again, I enjoyed it a lot, but I could see why this episode might throw people off, because it's almost like, what does the episode have to do with anything? It plays into the larger scheme of things in general, but it plays into also like the larger theme that they were kind of going for with the original plans for the show, and that was just, once again, a very episodical thing. So this would have just been a day in the life of Matt Murdock type of situation. So, and I still think it still serves its purposes, but I can see it like kind of like losing the thread of kind of what the setup was of last episode playing into this episode. But I also feel like it still could just be like a continuation of, once again, the furthering of Matt's getting back into shape when it comes to, you know, being Daredevil and stuff. But yeah, that's just me. I'm excited to watch the next episode and see where it ultimately ends up taking us going forward with all of this. But really, that's all I wanted to talk about. Until the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.